Good morning. Two hands here. Both hands, I Cbet turn and get raised and called. Uh, both hands, I'm in mid position. So hand number one, I've got pocket kings. This is a 5NL table. I open raise for 3 and big blind calls. All that I have on big blind is 5 hands. He's currently playing 20-20, 20% VPIP, 20% pre-flop raise. I don't have him 3-betting at all, but again, that's out of 5 hands. So what we'll do is just kind of set up kings plus ace king. I think most people 3-bet with those. It's not that great. Let's get rid of some range because it's only one call. I think if there's more callers, he probably would have a wider calling range, but right now I think he's going to be fairly tight. I mean, right there is 15.5%. So pocket kings gonna be ahead 77%. Not too worried about the hand. I'm glad I'm getting called. I think it might also be important to note the stack sizes. So this might have been a short table where everyone bought in for 50 big blinds, and that would explain why we are so low. So when we call, stacked pot ratios about 5.5 or so, and flop comes king jack 5, which is really, I'm gonna say pretty good for me. So I hit trips and he checks, and now the question is, what do I do? Do I check? Do I bet? I think here we have, I don't think we want to slow play because I think there are a lot of hands that can call us. So if we think about his pre-flop raising range, he has kings and he has jacks, and I think kings and jacks are definitely going to call. I think, maybe ace queen, ace 10 might call. Probably not. It depends on the player. A loose player is going to probably call with all gut shots, but the standard player probably doesn't. I think he could call with heart, spade draw. And spade draw would be like some of these combo draws. So the last king of hearts is out there. So I do think that if we bet, I think we're going to be able to get some value from worse hands. And that's what I did. I bet half pot, which I think is okay. It's encouraging a wider call. And if he's going to call, we're going to say he's probably going to call top pair, maybe pocket pair and middle pair. So all of those hands, and we're going to make sure we have the flush draw, make sure we have the open-ended straight draw, and make sure, I'm not sure if he has the gut shots. Ace, queen, and ace 10. I think if it's there, it's going to be part of our flush draws, ace, queen, and ace 10 of hearts. I think we're good. So 37%. With that calling range, we are still way ahead. We've got, there's cards that he can catch. So if he calls, I think this is good. He's got a hand that he likes. Turn was a 3 hearts, not the greatest. Makes it, him having a flush about 19% of the time. He checks. And I think, so if we bet now, I do think we're going to get these pocket pair below, top pair to fold. I think the middle pairs are going to fold. Weak pairs are going to fold. I think your flush draws. So if you have the lone ace, maybe like ace king, ace jack with the ace of hearts, he's probably going to call that. Probably also the second nut flush, because the second nut flush will be something with the king of hearts. So king, queen. I think he'll give up. If he called with gut shots, he missed the gut shot, he's not going to call that. So I think if I bet he's calling 44.1%, we're going to be, a favorite. What if we check? Could we get a possible call from him on the river? On a non-heart river, we might be able to. Might be able to get queens to call, might be able to get jacks to call, but that's kind of a long shot play. I think standard is to look at what does the average average player do. And I think on this board, I think it's okay to go ahead and bet. So even if we're behind, even if he calls with the flush, we could still catch, or have the board paired and catch the full house. I think checking leaves too much money on the table for hands that would have called. So I bet half pot, and then he raises, and he doesn't just min raise, he raises it more than 3 times. So might be about half pot or so. Let's see here, 18, 19. Let's see what percentage he raised it. So 6.4 times 3 plus what's in the pot. So 2/3. So he bet 2/3 pot, or he made a raise of 2/3 pot. That's pretty strong. So now what is he gonna raise with? I think he's probably gonna raise with the flush, and he has all of these nut flush draws out there. Is he gonna do it with a set? I think so. Is he gonna do it with 2 pair? I think 2 pair is a little less likely. And I don't think he's gonna be doing it with the draws. So I think flush and sets. And when we look at it, we are slightly behind. So we need 27% equity. We're only having 48.9. I do think this is a fold. We're folding with trips because we don't have the equity. I think the people that play like this, where they check raise a turn, I think more than likely they have a solid hand, even though they can have sets in their range, because I think they call with all of these suited aces. And because that the ace hearts is available in their hand, it just makes a flush that much more likely. So I did call, and then the ace clubs hits. And I just think if we're behind, we're still going to be behind. Now he's offering me, he bets 10 to win 56. He says, so I need 13% equity to call. You can see against his entire range, I'm 35% equity. So right now, just based on equity, it's a question. Could he do this with trips? I think he could. I think he could do it with pocket threes, pocket fives, pocket jacks. I don't think he would have check raised with ace king, but if he had ace king with the ace hearts, if he was capable of it, I do think he could make that play now, where straight gets there and he bets small, because I had already called, and he's like, well, maybe I have the ace, or maybe I have the flush, or maybe I just picked up the straight. So we're getting the odds at this time to call. So we do call, and he shows 610, which is the flush. Now, I don't have 610 in his range, and that's okay, because I don't know how to build his range. All I have is 20-20, 20% VPIP, 20% pre-flop raise, and I've got like 5 hands. So knowing that he plays like that, he's probably calling all of these. I mean, possibly even all of those. Probably his offsuit aces. Probably those from the big blind, so 50%. And then when you go back and look at the hand ranges, when we said he'd probably call, if he's calling with that, he's probably also going to be calling with the gut shot. So you're looking at, we're at 85%, and then the 3 of hearts comes and he check raises, and we said check raise tends to be the sets and flushes. So, still doesn't change much. We're at 33%. We needed 48. We weren't getting that. So I do think we fold, and then the ace clubs hits. And, it was 13% equity. Right now we are at 14% equity. So if we chose to fold, we could. It's only a slight mistake to fold that on the river. We're not giving up too much. All right, so this is hand number 1. Let me clear it out and get hand number 2. All right, hand number 2 is ace queen. This is a 4NL table. This is 6 max. So I open raise. I get the button and the small blind to call. So I've got a lot more hands on these players. The button 243 hands is 55% VPIP. Calls 2 bets 64% of the time on the button. His 3-bet stat on the button is basically really low, so I do think we're going to be playing quite wide here. We are going to take out your typical 3-betting ranges here. Probably also ace-queen suited. Even though he hasn't 3-bet, I mean, he has it. I've got 2% overall. It's 1 out of 56. I don't think he's really had the opportunity to 3-bet with decent hands. So I think 48.6 is adequate. And you're going to see that I'm at the top of his range with ace-queen. So 63%. Unfortunately, he does have position on me. Small blind is playing 34-4. I think small blind, once the button calls, gives him at least some reason to call. So he's called 17% from the small blind. I do think small blind's going to have a tighter range because he's going to be out of position, and that's just how most players play. So even though it's 34%, I don't think he's going to be that wide. We can do all of the suited aces. We can get rid of queens plus ace king. And I don't have any like 3-bet stats. I've got called 2 bets from blinds. Pairs, king 9, 10 9 off. That could be from the big blind too. So I think maybe just being a little bit tighter here, and we'll go from there. So again, ace queen is going to be at the top of his range. Flop is ace 7-5, all of clubs. So I hit top pair and I have flush draw. So I've got third nut flush with the queen. You can see, how likely is it that hits a flush? Well, you have to remember I have the queen of clubs, so king queen of clubs isn't out there. Queen jack of clubs isn't out there. Queen 10 of clubs isn't out there. Maybe queen 9. So we block like the top club draws or the top flushes that are out there. We don't block all of them. You can have your suited kings, but anything that includes that queen is going to be out. So right now the small blind only has a flush with this range 3% of the time. Big blind, or the button, only has a flush 7.5% of the time. So we can't really be afraid of the flush. And even if they have the flush, they could have jack 10 or 10 9 or 9 8, or some other junky 10 8, 10 6 type of hands, like we saw 10 6 last hand. So we do have outs if they have the flush. All right, so what should we do? I do think we should bet. I think we should c-bet here, because I think you can have your lone king of clubs will probably call, maybe even jack of clubs will call, and possibly your aces. So ace jack, ace 10, ace with weaker kickers, maybe your pocket pairs. So if I bet here, which I did, I bet half pot. I think from the big blind, you can see he folds the c-bet 57% when he's in position, 63% when he's out of position. This player is going to likely call, let's see here, he's going to probably call with all of his top pair with flush draws, probably top pair no flush draws, pocket pair below, top pair, so the 8s, 9s, 10s, and jacks, probably. Middle pair, probably not. I think he's going to give up middle pair. Nut flush draw, he's going to probably call. Maybe the third nut flush draw, see what's there. I don't think gut shots and open-ended straight draws are going to call at this point. Not when there's a flush out there. I think most people just give them up. So if he calls with just this range, he's continuing 34%. He's folding 66% of the time. If we include all of those sevens, then he's continuing 43% or folding 57%, 56%. So I don't think he's going to continue with middle pair. I think that's his range. We're going to be 73%. So I'm going to be okay if he calls, and he does call. This villain, he folds out of position 100% of the time. That is 1 out of 1. He's folded, let's see here, yep, 1 out of 1. When he's in position, he folds 25%, so I think he's going to be much, much tighter. I think it's going to be a top pair flush draw, probably all the top pairs, your flush draws, maybe your nut and third nut flush draws. That's 40%, so he folds. He's probably, I'm going to guess middle pair, pocket pair below top pair. I don't think with a second person calling, I don't think it's justified to call with those weaker hands. And even with this top pair, he's got all of those aces. We can take all of those out and say, okay, well, with all of the calling, I don't think he's going to call with these small aces. Is that ace 10? So we've changed what he's continuing with. He folded, so we can end it there. All right, now the 4 of clubs hits. So if we were behind, now I think we're kind of ahead. And we could look at his ranges. So I do think he has all of those suited aces. Well, those are out, so he doesn't have that. He has these suited kings, though. And I think that suited king could pose a problem because he could have had king jack of clubs, king 10 of clubs. He has these offsuit kings, and I do think he would have called with the lone king of club. So when we look at flushes, you're saying the nut flush is at like 14%, 13.5% now. Is that enough to really worry about it? Because when you look at all this other stuff, the third and fourth flush together make up 18%, 18.5%. And if we add in all of the flushes, minus the nut flush, we're dealing with 28%. Much more likely that he has a weaker flush than us. So I don't think we should necessarily worry. Now, should we bet? Should we call? I think here's kind of interesting because you can have 2 pair, you can have 3 of a kinds, no flush and no draw. I think if I bet, he's probably continuing with just the flush draws. He can probably find a fold with 3 of a kind and 2 pair. Again, the board's just kind of too scary, and yeah, is kind of loose, but his fold to Cbet stats are pretty high, so I don't think he's going to go overboard calling with weak hands. Even his one at showdown's 53%. It's more than 50%, so he's not getting there with just bluff catchers. So I think if I bet here, he's probably going to fold these 2 pair, no non-flush draws, and I'm going to get rid of the 3 of a kind because I think he could probably fold. He might not be happy about it, but he could probably find a fold. And even if he doesn't, it's going to be at a percentage. So maybe he's going to continue only 50% of the time, or maybe 65% of the time. I don't think it's going to change the numbers that drastically to really have a significant effect on our game plan. So you can see that if I take it out, he continues at 42.6. I'm at 82.9% equity. If we leave it in, oops, hold on. So if I took it out, now that we have that, I'm at 67% equity. If we put it in, we're at 68% equity. So it's just 1% at this 50% continuance range. If it's 100%, we're at 68, 67. You can see it's 1%. So I don't think it matters. I think he's going to only continue with the flush draw. We're going to be ahead. I think we're okay to bet. Question is, it's these weak flushes. If I bet, would he ever give up on these? And he could. We're dealing with the lone cards. We're dealing with a 9 or an 8. In these offsuit aces, you're dealing with the 6 or the 3 or the 2. I don't think he's calling with all of those. So if I bet, let's X out these weak flushes. Actually, it's probably all of them. Cancel. It's probably all of them. Fourth nut is the tens, and I'm not sure. So now we're getting to the point where it's like 50%. I think we can control our bet, because what we don't want to do is check and then have him bet pot with the third nut. I think that kind of makes us question our play. Now we're going to have the odds to call, but I think we might be able to go ahead and bet small, so bet half pot to try to set our price for this hand and get a little bit of value, because with that half pot bet, he might call with a fourth nut flush draw. What does he do? He raises it. He raises it to 30, and I don't think that's good, because I don't think the third nut flush is going to raise. I don't think the fourth nut flush draw is going to raise. So if he raises that, definitely I don't think the fourth nut flush draw raises. With it set that's the tens. So jacks, maybe jacks and king. So at that, I have 51% equity. I need 25%. I am getting the odds to call. I can call, which I did, and then 7 of hearts gets there, and that's kind of interesting. I think all that we can do is now is check it down. Check, hope he checks. We showed some strength. We bet flop, we bet turn, and then we called his raise. I think we've got a showdown value hand. I don't want to bet, because I think it could give him a reason to fold the jack of clubs. So I checked and he checked behind, which I think is okay. And then he shows king jack. So he had the nut flush. He's not going to fold that. I think we save some money here. It's in his range. We had that. His range may have been a little too wide, but we did have it. And I think the raise was suggestive of that flush draw. Could it have been jack of clubs? Maybe. Maybe. I think we were getting the odds. I wouldn't say this was a bad call. We had the second nuts here, so I think I'm okay with that. Could we have bet as a bluff? Probably not. I think once we bet half pot and then just called, I think it's going to be hard for the king to fold. And in order to make that bluff, I think we have to shove him all in. And he could still call, because he's thinking, well, I have the nut flush. I would have to have a pocket pair. And really, what pocket pair am I going to have? Pocket aces? Possibly. Am I going to have pocket fours, fives, pocket sevens? I know that those hands are in my range. Definitely fives and sevens. Fours. Would I have C-bet with this? Probably, because it is a monotone board and it is kind of scary. So yeah, I think I could have C-bet with fours, hit the flush, and then probably continued again. I'm not sure if I would have bet the turn, though. I guess that's kind of the decision. Should I have bet, or should I have checked the turn? All right. I hope you enjoyed this. Look tomorrow for a few more hands.